What's up, guys? So, I want to talk a bit more about what happened Sunday. And I didn't think I was going to revisit this, but apparently, people are still arguing about the finish and what happened with Ross Chastain. And I'm actually surprised, even though I'm kind of used to seeing the way people see things. And I talked about this in the earlier video. I don't know if it was the last video, it might have been the one before that, but when I talked about, fanboys and just people not able to separate their fanaticism from reality and facts, right? And people seem more intent on pushing things that have more to do with how they view specific people rather than how the entire sport is affected. So I guess to put it another way, if it's, if it's somebody you like, you defend it. If it's somebody you don't like, you criticize it. That's just sports fans in general. It's not just NASCAR. We see that everywhere. But I will say that when it comes to NASCAR, it's even worse. It's more toxic, in my opinion, because NASCAR, yes, it's a team sport because you got all these teams. But in actuality, we as fans view the sport as individuals, right? You got, let's say, 40 cars. You kind of separate everyone separate, just in your own mind, right? You have a favorite driver, you root for them against 39 other cars. Um, so that's what makes it a little bit different from most other sports, at least team sports. So, as everybody knows by now, Ross Chastain took the access road in overtime and attempted to steal a win. And I already kind of told you what I thought of it, but for the past couple of days, this debate has not slowed down at all. Uh, Whether it's on social media, YouTube comment sections, whatever, I've had several discussions with people going back and forth, and people telling me I don't know what I'm talking about. I need to go see the replay. I've seen this fucking replay 1,000 times already, and I have yet to see what people are talking about. So I'm going to cover a few things of what people are saying for the most part and what I see. All right. And I honestly think people are crazy. I think they have their fanboy hats on way too tight. Now, there are a few things I do agree with people on, which I will mention. And it does concern NASCAR and their kind of wishy-washiness when it comes to, penalizing and stepping in and enforcing rules. They do seem to kind of be all over the place. And even when they explain certain things, it's very wishy-washy. Like they're just making excuses. And it's not good for the sport. And just like I talked about the penalties and how they gave a slap on the wrist to JGR, but almost everyone else got they really dropped the hammer. And this is why I don't like that stuff. You have to go across the board even-handed because it leaves too much room open for interpretation by fans. And they're always going to look at everything through a lens of conspiracy. And that's NASCAR's fault. This is why, as the sanctioning body, you really have to be extra vigilant in enforcing rules. This is why it's important. Um, and I'm almost getting the feeling like NASCAR kind of likes this, at least for this week, because if you think about it, what if you didn't have all these controversies with this fucking funnel of pain? If you took out all of these crazy, you know, out of control antics by almost all these drivers, if you take out that funnel turn madness and you just looked at the race, at the rest of it, nobody would be talking about this race. This race was boring, and it's not surprising. It was boring last year as well. This is one of the worst tracks on the schedule. And in many ways, it reminds me, like I said before, of restrictor plate racing at Daytona and Talladega, in the sense that it really doesn't matter how good the car is or how well you run. It does come down to track position and what happens with everyone around you. You are at the mercy of all these people around you, and you're in that pack, and you just hope for the best. And if you get caught up in something and you could get punted out of position, and you could be running top 5 and you end up all the way in the back in just a couple turns. Or you could be in the back and get lucky and a bunch of people in front of you wreck and you gain a bunch of spots. In that sense, this reminds me of restrictor plate racing, which is not a good thing. It's a lot of the same reasons I don't like restrictor plate racing. A lot of this really isn't based on skill. Yes, it takes skill to navigate a road course and to race, in these cars with all these competitors. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that these particular tracks and races take away from that skill. It's a lot more about luck. This is why I don't spend a lot of time talking about who finished up front and who ended up in the back, because it wasn't really based on how these cars were running. Suarez ran great. He was running in the top 5, top 6. And after this restart, Blaney was upset because Suarez kind of got into him. He didn't know that really Cindric got into Suarez. But even though he kind of, his reaction on the radio was, I don't even care anymore. I've been pushed around all day. I'm going to get even with somebody. So he was already dead set on just taking someone out, and that someone was Suarez. Suarez was doing what everyone else was doing all day, and this funnel, this is what happens. This is why you can't go in there and nitpick all 40 cars. Everybody is doing this at some point. This is why my main concern was 2 people, Logano and Chastain. What they did in the race was above and beyond what everyone else was doing. Logano, on a restart, there was one where he was all the way near the wall, the inner wall, and it was 5 wide, and he had nowhere to go. He's a veteran. He knew what was going to happen, and he's been taking people out all day, all year. Nobody does anything about it. He's always got that goofy grin after the race when he's being interviewed. And until somebody knocks that goofy grin off his face, he's gonna continue to do this. This is why I'm not gonna say anything else about Logano, because he's been getting away with this stuff for as long as I can remember. These guys are all talk. They don't want to fight. They want to do everything in the car because it's easy to use a car as a weapon, but they don't really man up and fight. If you really want to bring some excitement for fans, let these guys fight after the race. Don't break them apart. Don't have these big team crew members come in there and hold them apart. Let these guys fight it out. When somebody finally knocks that goofy grin off of Logano's face, I think he'll think twice about doing what he does. But he knows he's got an entire crew of people that are always going to create a wall between him and anybody. So he feels free to do what he wants, and he gets away with it. Nobody does anything about it. So he was one of the most boneheaded people all day. So and it stood out above what everyone else was doing. But everybody was being aggressive. Suarez took it like in this part here, he took it like 4 wide. So everybody's doing it. This is really NASCAR's fault for putting them at a racetrack like this funnel of pain, which Jeff Burton coined that phrase and deserves credit because that's exactly what Turn 1 is here. This is not made for stock cars. This is a shitty racetrack, and it's boring. On top of that, the racing sucks. All people are talking about are the controversies. It's not about, oh, wow, what a great race this was. The Coke 600 had 1,000 cautions, but people still enjoyed the actual race because the actual race was good. And without the cautions, it would have been even better. If you watch that race and you take out all the cautions, it's an incredibly entertaining race. This, not so. So, we go from Logano to Chastain. So here is, for some reason, Chastain has become somebody who's very popular, and I have nothing against people rooting for him. In fact, anything I say now, I'm not trying to convince people not to like him or not root for him, and you're free to root for him. But where I take exception is when people go out of their way to defend bullshit. You're not going to lie to me. You're not going to bullshit me. And I've never seen so much bullshit in the course of 2 days as I've seen with people defending Ross Chastain. So we're going to dissect a lot of what people are saying. The first thing I'm hearing about that everybody's saying is he was avoiding a wreck. So I'm going to show you right now the wreck that he was avoiding.
Restart that time for Reddick, though. He's got a...
First of all, he's running like fifth, right? You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he's running fifth. Here we go into the funnel of pain. This is him on the outside. His car is pointed straight. Everyone else is starting to slow down and take the turn. Show me where is the wreck he's avoiding. That everybody's saying he was avoiding a wreck. There's nobody here. In fact, even though he's all the way on the outside, he's not the only car on the outside. There's a whole row of cars on the outside. Also, look at this restart. You tell me what's different about this restart than all the other restarts they had that day. Every restart is exactly the same. Okay? Except that one time where Logano was all the way over here, the one I was talking about. Other than that, this is the funnel of pain. Every other restart was exactly the same. Except this time, he was running on the outside and already pointing the car straight, never intending to slow down or even attempt to turn the car. Everybody up here, you could see the nose of the car is already slightly pointing inward as they're slowing down. He's not avoiding anything. Now, the other, let me take a look. There he goes. Full speed. Everyone else is taking the turn. Now, is this insane? Yes. But you don't get to decide, you know what? I might get caught up in a wreck here. I'm just going to go straight. That's not the spirit of the rule. I'm going to talk about the rules in a second, but this is turn 1. This is an access road. Okay? NASCAR said these cars are allowed to use the access road, but the spirit of the rule is if you're avoiding a wreck, if you missed a turn, if you actually tried to slow down and turn, but you just overshot it and you can't just stop and do a U-turn and go back on turn 1, you go straight. That's what the access road is for. That's why they put that access road there, because they know this is an incredibly tight turn after a fucking long straight going at full speed. They know there's going to be times where you missed a turn. You need an access road. So yes, you're allowed to use it, but the spirit of the rule, the spirit of competition is you attempt to use turn 1. He wasn't trying to slow down. He wasn't even thinking of making this turn. This was on purpose. There was no one here, nobody wrecking. Everyone else behind him look, even cars on the outside. One other car did follow him, Austin Dillon, you'll see right here, who said, I'm going too. He did it, I'm doing it too. But everyone else took the turn. And as you could see, it's chaotic. People are beating and banging. But that's the way it is at this racetrack. There were how many other restarts? But it was with this final overtime where he decided, I think I'm going to try to steal one. That's what this was about. He was not avoiding a wreck. And if this, what some people are saying is, well, he anticipated a wreck over here. You could do that all day. That's not your call to make. If there's not a wreck in front of you, you are supposed to attempt to make that turn in good faith. That's what sports and competition is supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be about, let me try to find a way to cheat my way to a win. And that's what he's doing. And I couldn't care less who doesn't like this opinion. If you want to keep cheering him on and then making excuses for him, you go ahead. That bullshit is not going to work on me. So this is all bullshit, as you could see. Now I'm going to show you a little more. So yeah, it's chaotic. It goes on, and here people are banging into each other. At this point, Briscoe got into the bumper of Suarez. Suarez kind of ended up getting into the side of Blaney, and he got spun. So this is a product of what NASCAR is doing with this funnel of pain. This isn't fucking racing. This is a circus. Some people like this. They're entertained by this, but don't call it racing. This isn't a sporting event. This is a circus. This is entertainment. Where you can have people that work their way to the front and are running, they fought for this. They're actually and through strategy too. There's a lot of bullshit. So in either case, they took that turn and they were competing. Meanwhile, Chastain's taking this shortcut and just hoping to get away with it. While these guys are beating and banging. And guess what? Some of these people got knocked out. It happens. I don't like this shit. I don't support it. But this is what they signed up for. This is what you're going to get at this track. This is why I don't want to see any more races here. And if you're not going to do the oval, don't come back here at all. Go somewhere else. This is one of the worst tracks on the circuit, and the racing sucks. So, yeah, he got taken out. Some other people got, knocked out. Yeah, it's chaotic. And here you got Chastain up front, just like racing, like, hey, nothing to see here. He was running fifth on that restart. And he went from fifth to here, battling for the lead and taking the lead. And possibly, he could have just taken Reddick out. And the funny thing is, the same thing happened last year with a different kind of result when Chase Briscoe cut the track and didn't come to a stop, and he just kept going. And he ended up actually taking out Denny Hamlin, who had that win in the bag. Took him out and had no business running up there. And this, you mean to tell me Chastain actually believed that he could get away with it? That nobody's gonna notice? Now, I'm gonna talk a little bit more about the rules. So yeah, we know it ended up that Reddick ended up taking the lead back, and he kind of saved NASCAR from having to, for the second week in a row, take a win away from somebody because of some bullshit that they pulled. So Reddick saved them the same way Blaney saved NASCAR at the end of the All-Star race. NASCAR fucks up, and then they kind of breathe a sigh of relief. But imagine Chastain actually got into Reddick and took him out. And now you just cost him a win. Is that good for the sport? I don't think so. But people don't care about that. What they care about is who is the person doing it, and do I like them or do I not like them? That's what people care about. Other people were all day long, by the way, got knocked into the grass, spun out, all that. That's not the same thing as purposely taking the access road. Those are two different things because, as per NASCAR, if you are knocked out of the racetrack through no fault of your own, just a racing deal contact, you get to keep going. And if you make up spots or you lose spots, it is what it is. That's the rule. And last year, I don't remember, I know there was one or two people that I think got penalized because they ended up getting knocked into the grass and they kept going. And then later NASCAR sent them to the back. Well, they came back this time and said, well, look, if it's not your fault, it is what it is. Wherever you just fucking end up, you end up. If you make up spots, good for you. If you lose spots, tough. And I agree with that. You shouldn't get penalized if through no fault of your own, you get knocked out of the track. That's not the same thing, because I know that's another thing people are using to defend Chastain. Oh, he wasn't the only one. Other people went in the grass and they made up spots and this and that. It's not the same thing. But that's what people do. Because they're so focused on who's doing what. It's like, oh, this is about my guy. And what he just tried to pull, I'm going to make excuses for it. So I'm going to make up the fact that he was avoiding a wreck. He was not, as I just showed you. He never even tried to make that turn. There wasn't a genuine attempt. Okay? So here's the other rule. If you take the access road, you are supposed to come to a complete stop on turn 12 before you continue. That's the rule. And the same people that are talking about NASCAR and how they were allowing people to use the access road all weekend, okay? They were allowing it, so why did they take away the second place finish from Chastain? Because he didn't stop at turn 12. I don't know why that's so hard for people to understand. It's not hard for them to understand. They choose not to understand it. They choose to ignore that part of it. They'll tell you how NASCAR allows you to use the access road, but they don't tell you you have to stop at turn 12. Or you get hit with a 30-second penalty, which is exactly what they did to Chastain, and I believe Austin Dillon, who did the same thing. So NASCAR actually enforced the rule, and people are complaining. And this is where I have a problem with fans. Because even when NASCAR does something right, fans complain. Because to them, it's not about the integrity of the sport. It's about their guy. Who they like, who they don't like. And then they tell you, well, people have been taking that access road all weekend and not getting penalized. And that is where I do agree with people. Finally, we agree on something. NASCAR has done a piss poor job of enforcing their own rules. And they need to do a better job of it. So instead of defending Ross Chastain, what you should be doing is telling NASCAR, what you did to Chastain was correct. But why aren't you doing it across the board? Why did you let people do this all weekend? That is NASCAR's issue. And that's the problem people should be complaining about. But they're not really, they don't really care about that part of it. The way they're looking at it is, everyone else got away with it. I want my guy to get away with it too. And they don't even care. This is why I say these fans don't care about the integrity of the sport, because if they did, they would take into account, what if he won the race? You think that's good for the integrity of the sport? You think that's good for NASCAR? You think that's good for maybe borderline casual fans who may be tuning in for the first time? You think that's good that they saw somebody blatantly fucking take advantage of something? to take a win he did not earn, did not deserve. He was running fifth. And this racetrack is extremely hard to pass. You saw people on old tires stay out and hold everyone off. So don't tell me. Yes, Ross Chastain is extremely talented. But he's not that fucking great that he's going to go from fifth to first in a couple of turns unless the people in front of him wreck or spin out. That's the only way that's going to happen at this track. Even the best drivers have a hard time making passes. So, but this is the mentality of these fans. This is that fanboy hat that's on way too fucking tight. They want to convince people that, oh my God, yes, he is this great, that he could go from wherever the fuck he was. Look, they have him fourth here. But if you could see, he's on the outside. He's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he's fifth. Maybe just at the restart line he was fourth, but he kind of, one of these cars kind of just got past him. But, yeah. So, let me slow this down. So, yeah. Nobody's that good at this track right here that you're going to pass 4 or 5 people without contact or just because people got pushed and shoved. But that's what happened when he took the shortcut. And you could see. You see tire smoke, people are slowing down and starting to turn right. He never did it. So, this is the spirit of racing. This is the spirit of the rules. And he, of course, he doesn't care about that. And some people will praise it as, oh, this guy, he'll do anything to win. Yeah, you know what? I don't see anything praiseworthy of that. I don't see anyone wrecking here. And if you want to say, oh, if he he was running on the outside, he's going to get hit. Well, look at all these other guys. This was happening all day long. Yeah, look at this. They took the turn. They took their chances. That is called the spirit of following the rules in spirit. But people are like, well, NASCAR should have been clear. They were allowing certain things all weekend. How is he supposed to know? Like, we're talking about a bunch of 12-year-olds that need their hands held. And that, what do you want? The crew chief to chime in on every restart? Remember, the access road is only if you are avoiding a wreck or if you get forced. Remember, this is turn 1, not the access road. That's the way people act. It's embarrassing and it's a bad sign. It's a bad reflection of the fan base. This fan base is embarrassing. So I couldn't care less what anyone has to say about my opinions. I've been catching some shit, look, it's social media. But I can't believe that after a couple days, people are still defending this bullshit. And the rules, by the way, just because you and I and the viewers at home are not really clear on the rules, doesn't mean that the drivers are not aware of the rules. They were fully aware that taking the access road means you have to stop on turn 12 or get a 30-second penalty. Everybody knew it because they were told in pre-race, at the pre-race meeting. This is why you don't have an whole army of people saying NASCAR never explained this rule to us. The only problem I have right now with NASCAR and how they handled all this is that they are selective when they choose to enforce certain things. So, for those of you who say other people did this throughout the weekend and got away with it, I agree with you. They shouldn't get away with it. That is what you should be complaining about to NASCAR. You shouldn't be using that argument to defend Chastain. This is the same as getting stopped and pulled over for speeding and being given a ticket and you tell the police officer, I wasn't the only one speeding. What about all these other people? You're the one that got caught. You're the one that's going to get a ticket. That's the way life works. Life is not fair. Now, NASCAR's job is to make things as fair as possible. This is why I come down on NASCAR, especially with the previous race where they only gave JGR a slap on the wrist and they gave other people they dropped a hammer. You can't do that. You have to be even-handed across the field. And until you are dead set dropping the hammer on everyone, regardless of who, okay, you're not going to get shit in order. So all the bullshit that people are saying, making excuses, he was avoiding a wreck, now you know, as I just showed you, it's all bullshit. He never attempted to make the turn. He was not avoiding a wreck. And you don't get to make that decision saying, oh, this is what's going to happen if I take that turn. I'm going to probably get caught up in something that's not happening yet. And then you're preemptively making a maneuver, avoiding a wreck that hasn't happened yet. You don't get to do that. And people are like, well, these guys, they anticipate a wreck. No. Everyone else took the turn. People on the outside. And you take your chances. That's what happens at this shitty-ass fucking racetrack and this stupid funnel turn. I hate it. I don't like the track. But this is what you signed up for. The spirit of the rules. This is what it is. And I don't care how many people got away with going through the access. That is the problem I have with NASCAR. You have to enforce the same shit on everybody. But you want to give Chastain a pass at the end because of that? And allow this fucking garbage clown show to be the final call on a race? That he could finish second? And possibly almost take out the leader for the lead? When he shouldn't have been battling for that lead to begin with? You guys really need to take off that fanboy cap once in a while. Because it's cutting off all the oxygen to your brain. I can't believe this is still a debate after all this time. And it's clear. And I got people telling me I need to watch the replay. Fuck you. Look at this. That's him. You see some smoke. People are slowing down. And there he goes. Never even attempted it. No wreck in front of him. You people are part of the reason that NASCAR is doing gimmicks. And why people are questioning the integrity of the sport. And saying, is this sports or entertainment? Because it's you people cheering this shit on. And if you can't take your fanboy cap off once in a while and just say, you know what? I'm still a Chastain fan, but this is bullshit. It's embarrassing. I don't want him doing this. I can't cheer for this. And I don't care what anyone says. I'm right about this. You're not going to convince me that there's something here that he's avoiding. This is bullshit. He thought he was going to get away with it, and he didn't. And rightfully so, NASCAR gave him the 30-second penalty that all of these drivers knew you're supposed to get. Now, the only legitimate beef anybody has is to say, well, NASCAR didn't enforce it on everybody. They've been letting this shit go on all weekend. That is where I agree. But instead of getting mad at NASCAR and demanding that they give even-handed penalties to everyone, they nitpick. And they're just looking at it through the eyes of a fan and who's involved. Because I promise you, the people defending Ross Chastain on this, if this was a driver they didn't like, they would be screaming about it. Their opinion would be very different. And they would be telling you what I'm telling you here. And they would be reminding you that he was supposed to stop on turn 12 because that's part of the rule. So NASCAR is responsible for allowing this shit to get to where it is. They need to get a tighter grip. And I don't like the way they're just all over the place with their fucking rules and penalties. And NASCAR has egg on their face. And they're fucking breathing a sigh of relief that he didn't knock out Reddick battling for a win, or actually win. That they would have to go in and explain taking the win away. Even though this is easy to explain, it's the fucking rule. The access road is not part of the race course. Everybody knows that. And these people are spending all their time telling people they're allowed to use it as per NASCAR. Well, they're also supposed to stop on turn 12 or get a 30-second penalty. So if you're going to be telling people that, you also have to, you got to give the full story. The fan base, I'm not talking about everybody, but I'm talking about these idiots. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Oh, what about this guy? I saw one guy cut through the grass. Well, if you're knocked out of the racetrack, you're allowed to keep going. You're allowed to do that. It's not your fault if someone else smacks you off the racetrack and into the grass. And if you happen to gain spots, you're lucky. If you happen to lose spots, you're unlucky. It's just the way it is. Now, if you want to say, well, maybe they could give a penalty like 2 seconds or 5 seconds. How do you decide that? And now you got to dissect 40 different race cars and decide who did what and whose fault is what. Well, look, Suarez got into Blaney, but Cindric got into Suarez. This is a shit show. This is really NASCAR's fault. But the conscious decision to do this and come out into the access road and try to steal a win and never stop like you're supposed to on turn 12, or what happened was supposed to happen. He got a 30-second penalty. Stop being a blind fucking fan of individuals and maybe think about what's best for NASCAR as a sport. This is not good. This clown show isn't good. It's not good for NASCAR. You're trying to get fans, but the only fans you're attracting with this are fucking WWE fans. People that don't care about sports and competition and fairness. And even if you want to make a case that, the rules are a bit confusing and convoluted, even if you want to make that case and ignore the fact that these are professional grown men, race car drivers, they know the spirit of the rule. Well, the spirit of the rule is why most of them still took that turn. Austin Dillon followed him. He did the same thing, and he was penalized. But NASCAR needs to be even-handed across the board. And before I close off, I want to highlight something. Brad Keselowski came out and actually said that he thinks NASCAR needs to be even stricter with their rules and their penalties. So kudos to him. And he explained, because the whole purpose of this new car and this new path that NASCAR's supposedly taking is to save money for teams. And the teams trying to cheat and find ways to cheat, and that's very expensive, which is why cheating always benefits the big money teams. And this is why we've had such a competitive season for the most part, the most winners at this point, and you don't know from week to week who's going to win. Those are good things. There's a lot of good things to talk about NASCAR. I don't want to be negative. I don't want to come on here and just highlight negative shit. I want to talk about positive things, but it's bullshit like this that makes it difficult. And I'm not going to be a NASCAR fanboy and come out and just tell you all the good stuff and ignore the obvious shit show. This is not good for the sport. And Keselowski's right. And they need to be strict and be even-handed. So those are my thoughts. I can almost guarantee that the same people still defending that have been making excuses for Chastain, they're going to keep doing it. They're going to say I'm wrong. Oh, well, you could tell here he didn't want to be a part of this. He is avoiding a wreck because look at this mess. Yeah, well, you could see everyone that was running the same line he was, they made it work for the most part. But yeah, eventually you're going to get into somebody, but you don't get to look at this and say, I don't want to be a part of this. I'm just going to take a shortcut. Are we ever going to hold these guys accountable for being grown men and adults who understand the spirit of competition? Or are we going to keep treating them like little children and accepting? This is why you're seeing this new generation of race car driver that has no etiquette. You look at this, it's like watching a race on iRacing or some NASCAR heat race online. It's just, it's bumper cars. It's insane. You tune in to watch a professional NASCAR race. You deserve better as a fan. And I don't want my guys, whoever they are, I don't want them to win because they fucking did some bullshit. And Joey Logano, somebody needs to step up. But these guys aren't going to do it. This generation is just, they're really good at retaliating behind the wheel of a race car. They're not going to actually do anything. And if they do approach another driver, they're waiting for the crew to step in and hold them back because they don't want to fight. They don't want to. I'm no tough guy. I am no tough guy. But I can promise you, if I had somebody like Joey Logano pull the shit on me that he's done to everybody, I will go up to him and I will punch him in the face and I'll deal with whatever fine you want to give me or any ramifications that come from it. I'll deal with it. But that's the only way people like that learn. Remember when Jimmy Spencer punched Kurt Busch? I don't think Kurt Busch ever messed with him after that. I might be wrong. That was a long fucking time ago. But I don't. I tell you one thing. He didn't want to stand face to face with Jimmy Spencer after that. How about when Marcus Ambrose punched Casey Mears? Gave him a good shot after a race. I don't remember what that was about, but Casey Mears never messed with Marcus Ambrose again. Yeah, so those are my thoughts. Do I look forward to your comments? I'm not sure this time, but bring it on. Later.